Last season, we saw the Knicks have their most successful campaign since the Carmelo Anthony era nearly 10 years ago. Not only did they win 47 games, but they were just a couple of bad Julius Randle playoff performances away from a conference finals appearance. One of the most polarizing players on this team was and has been RJ Barrett, as the former third overall pick had himself a pretty disappointing regular season before picking it up big time in the playoffs. This run had fans incredibly excited for what Barrett could potentially put together in the 2023 season, and honestly, I can't say I blame them. As a Knicks fan, I saw a certain confidence and aggressiveness out of Barrett that wasn't present at all last season, and while he might not become the star that many thought he would be, there's a good reason to believe that Barrett might finally become the consistent third option behind Julius Randle and Jalen Brunson that the Knicks need him to be. Like I said before, Barrett had a tough season last year. I'm not going to beat around the bush. Not only did he see a slight decrease in points per game, which in all fairness was to be expected with the Jalen Brunson signing, but his 3-point percentage plummeted, he lacked any amount of consistency, and his defense reached an all-time low. While Barrett still remained a solid on-ball defender, his screen navigation and off-ball defense in general were really bad and caused some pretty big problems for the Knicks during the season. Considering how great of a defender Barrett has been at one point or another in his career, this is really disappointing to see. Regardless, you'd hope that if a player was struggling defensively, that they'd at least pick it up on offense, but yet RJ didn't do that. RJ definitely showed some flashes of what could be a great offensive player, such as the 25-game stretch where he averaged 22 points, 5 rebounds, and 2 assists per game on some pretty damn impressive efficiency. Despite this, Barrett could never put it together at a sustainable rate, and it definitely cost the Knicks a couple of games. Really, the only part of RJ's game that saw genuine improvement this season was his efficiency at the rim, which saw about a 5% increase compared to last season. Barrett was being more aggressive and had a much softer touch at the rim compared to what we saw in his prior seasons, and it was easily the best part of his offense, which in all honesty isn't saying much. As a shooter, RJ almost completely fell apart. We all know he hasn't been the same since his sophomore season, in which he shot 40% from 3 on 4.3 attempts, but last season he was genuinely bad, hitting just 31% of his threes on about 5 attempts. Despite all of this, all of his struggles and issues in the regular season, RJ managed to put together a really good couple of playoff series against the Cavs and the Heat. While he was far from perfect, he was easily the Knicks' second best player behind Jalen Brunson for the majority of their playoff run, and if you factor out the first 2 games against the Cavaliers, which were really bad, RJ managed to average 21 points, 4 rebounds, and 2 assists, while shooting about 47% from the field and 36% from 3 on 6 attempts. Again, when you consider how bad he was in a regular season, this is a major improvement and something to be excited about. Now the question has to be asked, can he do this at a sustainable rate? In all likelihood, the answer is no. Barrett's just 23, we know this, but I think we've seen enough from him to know that he isn't going to be the all-star that most pre-draft projections had him as. However, this playoff series very well could help RJ become what the Knicks really need him to be, that being a consistent third option. Jalen Brunson and Julius Randle are 2 fantastic players in the regular season, but the Knicks don't have a clear third option in the starting lineup behind them. Quentin Grimes is one of the premier 3-and-D players in the league already, but his offensive creation is somewhat limited right now, and I'm not even going to waste anyone's time by trying to talk about what Mitchell Robinson can do on offense. But if Barrett can learn from his playoff run, there's a real hope that he can turn things around this season and become an important player for the team that's looking to make a potential conference finals push. That's the best part about RJ going into this season. He doesn't have to be that star player anymore. If he can literally just become a consistent third option that averages an efficient 17 to 20 points a game, the Knicks would be so much better than they were last season. His defense could still be an issue, but in all reality, if he can just continue to be an okay on-ball defender while being consistent on offense, nothing else will matter. As for things RJ can do to achieve this, for starters, just get to the rim more. Having Mitchell Robinson down in the paint isn't going to help him out at all, but at the end of the day, it's his most efficient shot by far, and he has to take advantage of it. Personally, I'd like to see Tom Thibodeau use him as an off-ball cutter or run more plays that involve him getting downhill, but we all know that that's not going to happen. We know Tom Thibodeau doesn't change his playbook regardless of the situation, regardless of the player. Alongside this, RJ has had a lot of moments where he's been really hot from 3. Don't get me wrong, but please, just stop shooting it so often. 5.3 attempts isn't a lot, but when you shoot 31% on them, something has to change. Now, this isn't entirely his fault, as a lot of the time Tom Thibodeau has Barrett propped up behind the arc while Julius Randle or Jalen Brunson are dribbling the ball with their ISO, but his lack of hesitance to shoot is really his biggest downfall at times. I love his confidence from three, don't get me wrong, it's an important part of any shooter's game, but even just if he can pump fake and drive, just passing to a better shooter, anything else at times would be the smarter play. Regardless, he has to be more efficient, whether he takes about the same amount of threes, less, or more. It doesn't matter, he just has to shoot better. Hopefully, though, Drew Hanlon can get RJ in the lab instead of just being on his hands and knees for Joel Embiid for the majority of the season, and maybe we can see some sustainable improvement from RJ Barrett. Maybe in a more laid-back third option role that RJ needs to play, we can even see a bit of a playmaking jump out of him. This is something I've always hoped to see from him, but for one reason or another, it really hasn't happened. RJ hasn't always been given the opportunities to be a lead playmaker from the Knicks, but he doesn't do himself any favors at all. RJ always has moments where he looks incredible as a playmaker. He can throw lobs better than just about anyone on the team, he's had some great drive and kick passes, and can even get some really nice relay plays off to help his teammates out. But there are just far too many times where he's a borderline black hole with the ball in his hands, which leads to some pretty brutal turnovers. However, if he can learn to play at a better pace, have the ball in his hands a little less, and just slow things down, we could see more consistency in not just this aspect of his game, but just in general. At least I'd hope, because the Knicks could really use some more playmaking behind Randle and Brunson. To sum it all up though, expect a more consistent season from Barrett, hopefully. He isn't ever going to make the star leap that some thought he would, but it really seems like he could be in line to finally take up the role as a consistent third option that the Knicks really need him to be. If I had to guess his averages for the season, I'd say about 17 points a game on much improved efficiency, about 5 to 6 rebounds, which is what he usually puts up. I'm not expecting any changes from that, and a slight improvement of around 4 assists per game. Nothing too crazy, but the efficiency is going to be crucial for him this year. He doesn't need to make a huge statistical leap, but all he has to do is be consistent. That's going to be key for not only RJ, but the Knicks in general heading into the season as they look to make maybe a conference finals run. I don't know. But with that being said, I'm going to wrap it up here. Thank you so much for watching, and please remember to like and subscribe. Let me know in the comments what you expect out of RJ this season, and if you have the chance, you should check out my podcast. I recently started with 6 Sports. If you're a Giants fan like I am, it definitely will be your cup of tea. It's been a blast to record. I've had so much fun with it. I'm very excited to see where that show goes. But thank you all again so much for watching, and I'll see y'all in the next one.